Hey, it's Kara, your host. I'm here today because I'm often asked, what should I read next? Or what is your all time favorite book? And that is why I created this list. This list isn't a declaration of the greatest books of all time. Rather, it's a collection of the stories I can't stop thinking about, the ones I've recommended more times than I can count, and that continue to live rent free in my head. Whether you're looking for your next unforgettable read, or just want to see what books have shaped my reading life, I hope this guide of 25 books inspires you to discover a new favorite. Head on over to the link in the show notes or to bookishflights.com/read/25 books. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights. In each episode, I chat with one bookish guest as we take some time to sample and savor the pairing recommendations from their bookish flight. We hope to give you suggestions to cultivate your TBR list and nurture your leisure time through books. In today's episode, I am chatting with Mollie Rushmeyer. Mollie writes whimsical romance with heart and humor. She has a deep and abiding love for all things British, bookish, and filled with history and mystery. A modern girl herself, she wouldn't want to go a day without modern plumbing and central air. She always felt a special connection to the past and anything with a happily ever after. Her debut novel, The Bookshop of Secrets, was a finalist for a 2023 Carol Award. A born and bred Midwestern gal, Mollie makes her home in central Minnesota with her husband and two spunky, beautiful daughters. Today we are here to discuss her latest novel, The Rules of Falling for You, that came out yesterday. Welcome to the show, Mollie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Excited.
I am honored to have you here today. I always start with, tell us a little bit more about who you are, because sometimes I feel like our bios are just kind of these like little verbatim bits of our lives. But yours is great. I was like, I'm learning so much about you in this bio.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think, yeah, all of those things are very much a part of me and my life. Like I said, I live in Minnesota and love our state and the beauty here. So we love to just be out in the outdoors here when we can. The frigid winters, maybe not so much. And we have really hot summers here now too. So maybe not so much on those 90+ degree days, but we do like to get out and enjoy the outdoors here. And a little bit about me, like, I love spending time with my family. We love to play games. We are a big part of our church. So that's a big part of our lives. And just another little tidbit about me, I do love to sing. So I'm in a very non-professional community choir. So that's something that I like to do when I'm not writing, which is all the time, I guess. So I don't have a ton of free time.
Yeah. Do you do performances with
We
this?
do, yeah.
That's
Yeah, we like
fantastic.
to go to like local sporting events and,
Okay.
do the anthem and things like that. And then we do concerts as well. We have another one coming up in June. So
Oh, that's awesome. What a cool experience. I am not a singer. I have a terrible voice. I'm like the shower singer, or the car. But I play the piano, so that's my like little
Oh, well,
musical
I really
piece.
admire that. I cannot play the piano or any instrument.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we all like find, right, in our lives, what we gravitate towards, and then we
Mhm.
we go
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about your latest novel, The Rules of Falling for You. And since listeners might not have gotten to pick it up
Mhm.
by today, can you tell them a little bit about it?
So, this story is about this woman, Zoe, who is absolutely obsessed with everything Regency, Jane Austen, and and everything Pride and Prejudice. Especially, she loves the BBC miniseries version of Pride and Prejudice. And she is actually a podcast host, so like you.
Yeah.
So she's a podcast host who tries to help people with their love lives, using that lens of Regency etiquette and things that are from her favorite Regency authors. And she is on the lookout for her very own modern day Mr. Darcy, or modern day gentleman, as she likes to call it. And she has a list of non-negotiable traits that she is looking for. So she has a very specific thing in mind. And she is also using a list of 30 ways to meet and secure a suitor that she found from her favorite Regency author. She is having trouble finding this modern day gentleman, so she decides to go on a singles retreat that is Regency themed. So meaning they have to dress like they're in the Regency era, and they're going to do lots of activities and things that are all Regency based. And that's where she thinks she's going to meet her Mr. Darcy.
Yeah. Well, listeners, I was telling Molly, I finished the book earlier this week and I loved it. And it sounded so fun. I'm like, I have fallen into like historical romance as of last year. It was a genre I hadn't read much of
Yeah.
before. And I had Gabrielle Meyer on the show actually, and that was what her book flight was. And I
I
always try to
love
read
her books.
yeah, and then I'm always like, I'll always try to read part of the book flight, as it came on the show. And I'm like, I really love this genre. So now I'm like down this rabbit hole and I was like, this retreat sounds so fun. And I actually know, because now of the world of Bookstagram, that there are I don't know about singles events. You might know this better than me, but
Yeah.
like there are events like where there's the balls or there's the weekends
Yes.
and like you can go
Yeah.
and it's like Regency themed. And I'm like, this is such a cool niche of a world.
Right. It is. It is. Like, I would love to go to one of those balls. I have not
I
been
was
able
gonna
to do
ask.
that yet in my life, but I would love to do that. And yeah, same with me. I think the idea just struck me because I love the idea of her having to go there and like dress, the part, and just like be immersed in this world that she loves so much. And but what I do love about it is it just doesn't turn out the way that she thinks it's going to.
Yeah.
Like she thinks she's just gonna find this perfect person, and they're gonna tick all the boxes and be this sort of Regency-esque hero. But it's just fun. It was fun to write all the mayhem and things that happened, that were very unexpected for her.
Yeah. I guess I should add here, it was made me laugh out loud quite a few times. Like there was some hilarious parts. So there's definitely some funny moments as well to it.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. And I was thinking too that a lot, I always, try to get in the head of the main character. And I was thinking like when you're immersed in this world, right? She's a podcast host and I'm sure she's reading and her shows she's watching, it's all like this Regency theme and that it's immersed in your world. I imagine there's quite a difference to like then being in the modern day, right? And then like pairing these two together and and yet, like you said, like she thinks that's where she's going to find it, but as the story progresses, you see like, okay, like maybe she can't check off all these non-negotiables, and
Yes, yeah.
but I imagine that's really hard to kind of like then, I don't know, like it seems like two sides of you and then trying to mesh
Yeah.
them together into
Yeah.
one.
For sure. For sure. I think that, yeah, she just had a whole idea of how it was going to turn out. And yeah, when you are on the outside looking into like Pride and Prejudice and, being a modern woman and just looking at, oh, just the romanticism about all of those things. And, oh, that just looks so lovely. And she wanted to just, yeah, jump into the pages of her favorite Regency books, basically. And she kind of got to do that,
Yeah.
in a sense. But yeah, it just wasn't everything she thought it was going to be. Yeah, and she had to kind of bring that together, like, okay, the expectations versus reality, kind of like those memes,
Yeah.
you know, and bring that all together to say, okay, maybe what I was expecting wasn't actually everything that I needed, everything that I wanted wasn't everything I needed.
Yeah. And I think there's probably many listeners as well that we have all these sayings around like she's got her heads in the clouds or get your head out of the
Yeah.
books, right? Like we all can go off to these imaginary lands. So it's very plausible that this is, what we're all doing and can relate.
Right? Yes, about yeah, different things in our lives. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or you think about, oh, I've had a rough day. I want to go escape. I want to go escape to my book. I mean, there's just so many sayings where it's like we would love this fictional world to become real life.
For sure. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I personally love about writing, and something that I wanted to do as I became a writer is, yeah, just provide that world that somebody would want to jump into. I think that, and I know we'll talk about it later, but the books that I chose, they were all things that were sort of an escape. They transported you, and that's what I wanted to do with this book as well.
Well, what did you learn about yourself through writing this book?
Well, I was thinking about that, and honestly, every time I write a book, I think that things that my character is learning, I'm really just learning it along with them.
Yeah.
And I'm writing it for myself just as much as everybody else, because there is that, like I said, that thing where she is learning to sort of reconcile the fact that maybe all the things that she had in her mind for her life weren't actually all the things that she needed for herself.
Yeah.
And she has to reconcile that. And I think that I can certainly be that way. I have a plan
Yeah.
and I want to see it done like this. But those times in my life that it maybe didn't work out that way, in hindsight, I can kind of see how that was actually probably the best for me. But it was so hard in the moment to think like that.
Yeah.
It was hard to give up that ideal or that idea that I had for myself. So, I mean, I think I was learning that and reminding myself of that, as I was writing this story. Absolutely.
We've talked about it quite a bit on the show of just that like idea of surrender and how hard
Yes,
that is to do. Like,
it is. It
I think
is.
we all like, I can sit here and say, like, I know God has a plan in my life, but for me to like sometimes willingly just follow is really challenging, right? To
Yeah.
let go and not be like, well, I know how to get me from A to B.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know, I mean, I'm me. Of course, I know what's best for me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you can get in that mindset, and that's absolutely true. And I think that, for Zoe, she does lack a lot of trust, and it's out of fear.
Yeah.
She's afraid of what's going to happen if she trusts God with her life and just surrenders it all.
Yeah. It is scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a lesson we're going to learn lifelong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I know you were going to say that you had something else that you learned, just so.
Oh, well, I was just going to mention too that part of her fear is um, the unexpected challenges of life, and just not knowing what's around the bend, but being okay with that and being at peace with, you know, realizing that God does have your best interest. He is good, and that, He's not leading you to something bad. There are challenges that happen in life, but we can trust Him through those as well. And so that was the other thing, that I always need to remind myself of as well. Zoe has some kind of hard things in her past, just with her mom's diagnosis and her own, and just kind of not knowing what's coming up and fearing that unexpected hardship, And in my own life, I think, that's been a big theme as well. And that's something that probably sneaks into my writing quite a bit. Just I'll share because it's no secret. In 2018, I actually had a stroke. And
Oh my
so it was
gosh.
very unexpected and
Yeah.
completely out of the blue. And so it, again, is something that I still wrestle with, that unknown of the next bend, and just how something can change completely in just 1 second. So I think that I don't know if I already learned it, but I'm certainly learning
Yeah.
it as I go. And, those things are healing for me to be able to write about a character that might be wrestling with something like that. Because as I'm writing those things, I'm writing them to myself too.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're helping your character, quote unquote, solve the problem,
Yeah.
but it's probably you, like you said, working through that healing process as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, if other people are dealing with, something similar or, hopefully they can take something from that. Hopefully I wrote it in a way that's, still general enough that somebody could take something from that and learn a little more. Um, and just, yeah, work on that for themselves.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of reading though, right? As we're
Mhm.
learning all the time. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like a nonfiction read where we're really learning, right? It's like you're still learning through the fictional characters and how they process and what they're going through, or you learn about
Right.
someone else's experiences. So you're gaining empathy. I mean, there's so many, we could go on probably about the list of benefits for reading, but that's one of them, right? It's we're
Mhm.
learning about ourselves and our
Yeah,
internal workings and how we're processing and as a, next to the character.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, what is your wish for readers when they pick up the rules of falling for you? What do you hope they'll
Oh,
take away?
yeah. I think it's a combination of things. Like I hope it is an escape for them because that's what's fun about reading. You can go anywhere, experience anything. And so I hope it transports them to this place. Maybe they want to jump right in this book, just like Zoe wants to jump inside Pride and Prejudice. But so yeah, I hope that and I hope it's fun for them to experience all these things and makes them laugh. I don't know if I want to make people cry, maybe a little. Or, just that it touches their heart
Yes. Yeah.
too. The things that Zoe and Harrison have gone through, are going through, that touches their heart in some way. And then, just taking away like a sense of hope. That's something that I try to, um, infuse in each of
Yeah.
the stories that I write. No matter what they've gone through, how they got here, that by the end, by that last page, like, they're filled with that sense of hope and, like that happy little sigh that you get when you finish, a book that you love.
Yeah. I was listening recently to an interview, like it was just a clip of it, but of Catherine Center.
Mm,
Have you read her books?
I love her books. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was just talking about how we read romance or rom-coms very differently than we do a
Mhm.
thriller, right? Because there's going to be this thread of like
Yes.
hope and happily ever after when you
Yes.
get to the end versus like a thriller, you're like, okay, when's the next shoe going to drop? Like, you're kind of on edge.
Right.
And just
Nothing safe.
how, the world needs more rom-coms where we read with like
Yeah,
under this lens of, hope is coming. Like,
absolutely.
so, but I was like, I love that. I love that perspective because it's so
Mhm.
true. We read like different genres very differently.
Yeah, that is. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. In a thriller or anything else, you're like, nothing's safe. Somebody
Yeah.
could die at any moment. And yeah, when you pick up a rom-com, like should feel pretty safe,
Yeah.
that, okay, they may have lots of obstacles to overcome, but that happily ever after is coming
Yep.
and you're just trying to see how they're going to get there.
Yep. Exactly. Well, was there a book that you read in your life and you thought, I want to be a writer?
Hmm. You know, I have lots of books from like my youth and as we talk about the Bookish Flights books as well, like I don't know, I just always go back to those books from my childhood because I just loved storytelling. And so I can't think of like one specific book, but I don't know if you want me to mention any of the other books that are going to be on the Bookish Flights, um, but I think that just from a young age, and I will thank my grandpa for this. He was such a reader, constantly bringing me books, always encouraged me to read. We're talking about C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien. So like I did a lot of fantasy reading,
Yeah.
honestly, growing up. And that was the first genre that I tried writing in and then
Okay.
just discovered it just wasn't my genre to write in, but I still love reading it.
Yeah.
And so it's funny to say now because I'm writing rom-coms that it was fantasy books like C.S. Lewis and things that inspired me to write, but that's kind of true just because I loved reading them so much.
Yeah.
And again, that transformative power that books have, I just like, wow, I want to do that for somebody. I want to write something that someone wants to visit the place that I'm
Yeah.
talking about and loves the characters so much they wonder how they're doing after they close the book. Have you ever
Yeah.
done that? You love the characters so much that you're like, oh, what happened after that? Like I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Like they're
Well,
real
and
people.
there's a reason those books have stood the test of time, right? Like they were
Mhm.
amazing storytellers. And so I could see where that would spark
Yeah.
your interest to do that, even though it's maybe not that genre, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we already kind of switched gears a little bit, but let's switch over to your
Sorry.
reading life. So, no, I don't mind at all. We should be going there. So you've already mentioned you lead a very full and busy life. How do you find time to fit reading in?
You know, um, it's kind of seasonal for me,
Okay.
meaning like it depends on where I'm at in the contract process and like
Sure.
writing process. Sometimes I have more time for reading than I do other times, but I will try to squeak it in usually before bed. It's something that just is kind of comforting to me to read before I go to bed. I sleep really well
Yeah.
when I read. And yeah, try not to do that one more chapter thing because I do have to get up in the morning. So yeah, I try and squeak it in before bed. When I'm less busy, right now I am just, writing a first draft on something. So it's kind of tough. But
Yeah.
other times when, I'm in a little break period, between things, might squeak it in, in the middle of the day, you know, when it's quiet, like after I've done a little writing or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and at this point now, you've been through the process. It's like you'll come back to it, right? Like you'll know
I,
that even though the
yeah.
season is busy, I know that I'll be able to come back to
Yeah.
it. And so you have
Yep.
that.
It just
There's your
kind
hope. There's
of
your
coming
hope
up.
waiting
Yeah.
for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We all
So,
need
yes. Well,
that.
what genres do you enjoy reading?
I would say it's probably almost easier to say what I don't enjoy because I
Okay.
read just like a little of everything. I don't read horror, just I don't like to be scared
Yeah. Same.
when I'm
I
reading.
need to
I just
sleep at
don't.
night.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't want, I hate to say this because I have friends that are mystery writers, but it's like, I don't, I don't necessarily want like a serial killer type
Yeah.
vibe in my brain. Yeah, for sleeping purposes. And I'm trying to think, Westerns aren't my favorite, cowboys and things like that. But yeah, like I love just about everything else. Read a lot of fantasy, rom-coms, of course,
Yeah.
and just contemporary romance, things like that. I love historical romances. I like even some more literary types, if they're not too highbrow.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
similar in that.
yeah, yeah. Like I want to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes with those they can be very vague, but anyway, so yeah, so I like a little of everything.
Wonderful. Well, you have been so gracious to bring a book flight with you today. And you've
Yeah.
kind of alluded a little bit how you
Yeah,
chose these,
yeah.
but can you tell us how you chose these books?
How I chose them. Well, I was trying to think back. And I guess I did keep going back to favorites from when I was younger,
Yeah.
I think. Maybe because that's where my love of reading and then subsequently my love of writing came from.
Yeah.
So I kept going back to that. And um, I think, well, for sure, two of them were ones that my grandpa had given me. And that's just so special to me. He's passed
Yeah.
away now. But yeah, he was just such a huge encourager for me in my writing. But way before that, when I was, young, he was the one that really sort of infected me, if you will, with that love of reading and books.
Yeah.
So,
And now that I'm thinking about it, I remember my grandfather always reading as well and
mm,
always having books. I mean, he was retired by like what I remember, right? And so he had more time and um I think that that's I don't know what percentage of I know there are men that are readers, but like I think of a lot of other men in my life and they're not necessarily readers.
yeah,
So
yeah,
to, to have someone model that, as one of our role models, that's
yeah,
pretty
it's
great.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, what is the first book you brought from your book flight?
Okay, so I know we talked about this. It's pretty cliche, but it's very true. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
Yes.
You probably could guess that, being that the theme of my book is all Regency and very much Jane Austen. But I've always loved Pride and Prejudice. The story, the book, I do have to show you the book that I have because a friend bought this one for me.
Oh my,
And
I've
it's
never seen that cover.
it's
That's amazing.
illustrated,
Oh,
which
that's
I love.
beautiful.
So that's a beautiful copy of it. But I've loved this story, since I was probably a young teenager. I think that was probably when I did the wrong thing. I watched the BBC miniseries before I ever read it. And I was like, what is this? At the time it was like, oh, they're all dressed funny and
Yeah.
what's the deal? And kind of talk funny or whatever. But yeah, I ended up loving it and then later read the book when I
Yeah.
was a little bit older and then went back to the movie again and it all made sense and I was like, wow, this is great. I love this.
I know there's quite a bit of debate over which is the best version of Pride and
Right.
Prejudice, right? That's been
Yeah.
adapted to film. So, but I don't, I mean, I'm like, I feel like I've heard this chatter a little bit. So is it the
Yeah.
BBC that like takes all, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Personally, yes. And, I may have put that in the book. So hopefully all of the 2005 people will not be hating on that.
Yeah.
Because there's the 2005 version that a lot of people like. And I do like that version as well. I just
Yeah.
think that the BBC version really stayed very faithful to the actual book and was able to include more because it was a mini series
Yeah.
versus, just like a 2-hour movie. So,
Yeah. Well, and we're all allowed to have our own preferences,
right,
right?
we
And
are all
opinions.
allowed.
Yes. So,
Mhm.
well, and then what did you prefer? Did you prefer the like back then you had you watched the mini series, you said, and then you read the book. Like, which did you prefer?
It's so hard to say because I am such a visual person that I don't necessarily think I had a preferred, but I think it was easier than for me to picture what was going on
Sure.
in the story because I read it as, a pretty young person, and so it kept my attention maybe more just because like I was able to envision what they were talking about and, envision the characters a little bit more. Now, had I read it the other way around, would I have gotten as much out of the book at that time in my life?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's
You
what I think
know?
about is we're introduced to the classics, and I understand why we are and why we study them in
Mhm.
school, but there's so many concepts that go right over our head when we're like late
Right,
middle
right.
schoolers and high schoolers. Like we just don't have enough information from the world, I think, to
Yes.
process them.
Right. And we're so used to now just tons of dialogue and, just being able to zip right through a
Yeah.
book because there's lots of white space, it's pleasing to the eye. And that is not something that you're going to find in classic books
Yeah.
because they didn't write like that. And there isn't tons of dialogue. And, there are long paragraphs to get through. And so, yeah, that can be a little tougher, I
Yeah.
think, especially for young people to try and get through those.
Yeah. And then you're just thinking, like, I just need to get through it for the assignment or the test, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
really, you're just kind of like, it's not leisure, like leisurely taking it in. It's for study purposes, which I think you read very differently
right.
in that regard. I'm
Absolutely.
trying now as an adult, like to go back and, read 1 to 2 classics a year. And I'll go back and reread some we read in high school. And I do get so much more out of them. And I've been so pleasantly surprised about how readable they are. Because
Mm.
in my mind, I think I associated to just being like something I had to check off, and it was
Yeah.
challenging
Yeah.
back
And it was
then.
so hard. Yeah.
But now, it like as an adult, I'm like, oh, that was actually way more readable than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and not nearly as
I agree.
painstaking as it felt when I was 15 years old or whatever.
Yes, I agree.
So, well, that was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. What's the
Yes.
next book you brought today?
Okay, so the next one I chose was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle.
Okay.
This one, and I still have the copy.
I
That's
love
the one I
it.
could find. So I still have this pretty beat up copy that my grandpa had given me. And that was one of the first books that he gave me that I was like, wow, where can I read more like that?
Yeah.
And he did end up, borrowing to me, and then I later bought them, the rest of the series, and I just loved it. Just whisks you away, and
Yeah.
just is very fantastical if you've ever read any of the books in this series. And yeah, there was just something, again, I think it just always comes back to, it just transported me. And, while some of the places they go in this, I would not want to go,
Yeah.
it still, kind of brings you to, another world. And yeah, it's just fantastic.
Yeah. And what
And
a cherished copy of the book that you have, which is great. This little, a small little paperback, but that it's
yeah,
from your grandfather and that you had it in your youth. And
yeah.
that's really special and
Yeah,
meaningful.
yeah, I still have it. And actually, my youngest daughter just got done reading it, and she's going to be doing a play of A Wrinkle in
I
Time this
love
summer.
that.
So it was like good timing for her to read it. And I was like, yeah, this is Papa's copy. That's what they called him.
Yeah.
She was pretty young when he passed away, but that was pretty cool to her too, to be
Yeah.
able to read his copy.
Oh, well, that's a great, I love that. And I'm sure your grandfather will be looking down, right? And
Hmm.
I love that.
Oh,
So that was
yeah.
A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. And then what's the last book you brought today?
I had kind of wrestled with this one, but I settled on The Giver. So I know these are all like childhood favorites, but oh, and it's by Lois Lowry. Sorry if I
Yeah,
didn't say that.
all
The
good.
Giver. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of just thinking back to what started my love of reading. And then after that, that kind of morphed into a love of writing and storytelling myself. And that is another one where I think the story itself was very, I don't know, like it really made me think. And I like stories that make me think. And when I read it, I was pretty young. And I can't remember if the very first time I read it was for school or if it was just because, like, again, my grandpa had given me a copy.
Sure.
I think he gave me a copy, and then after that, we read it for school or something. Um, but at that age, when you're just discovering yourself and how things work in the world, and you're reading this story of sort of a futuristic setting, but it's so realistic. And when you think about how we are as a society and how we could so easily
Yeah.
become that, it just really made me stop and think. And it's still a book that, I think about sometimes. And I think that that's such a cool thing, that books have that power that
Yeah.
they stay with you, and they can stay with you your entire life.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have reread actually all of these, except I don't think I've reread Pride and Prejudice as an adult, but I went back and I've also reread these like within
Yeah.
probably the past 5 years, 5 or 6 years, because I was like, well, what was it that I loved about these books? And I wanted to
Mhm.
kind of hunt that back out again.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought these books because like I said, loved them as a kid and then I've been
Yeah.
rereading them as well.
I know it makes me want to reread them again. Talking about them.
Yeah, so that was The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for bringing those books. How I
Yeah.
love to end our show is with our bonus pairings, and they're a speed round of questions you can answer really quick. Are
Okay.
you a rereader?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
What is a book you've read that has changed your life?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think any of the books that I mentioned, And, another one that comes to mind is the last of the Narnia Chronicles, Chronicles of Narnia, sorry,
Yeah.
The Last Unicorn. I think that that picture of the afterlife, that has really stayed with me.
Yeah.
It's another one where I've thought of that book, many times after reading it.
Yeah. As you say that, I'm like, I don't think I've read that one. So now I have to
Oh,
go and
yeah.
read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good book. And yeah, just the way that they ended with a picture of what heaven could be.
Yeah.
None of us actually
Yeah.
know, but I just always really liked that idea. I'm like, who knows? Maybe it is a little like that.
And it is one of those like universal questions I feel like we all have, like, well, what will it be like, right?
Yeah,
Or I feel
yeah,
like my
gets
kids
you
ask that
thinking.
quite a bit. So it's
Mhm.
great. Where is your favorite place to read?
Um, I would say probably in bed because it's nice and comfy. Right before I go to sleep, read in bed or on the couch. We have like a couch with the feet go up on it, and
Yeah,
so it's nice and comfy too. So those are probably my two reading spots.
love it. Lastly, what are you reading next?
I actually just picked up a copy of Pepper Basham had a new release, Some Like It Scott, so I'm excited
Yes.
to read that. I'm a little crazy busy right now, but I'm hoping to start it next week.
Yeah. When I saw that title, I was like, oh, I love that. It was such a good
Mhm.
title. So catchy.
It
Loved it.
looks so good. And I love Scotland, so you had me with that.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me and wanting to do this with me. That's awesome.
Of course, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Mollie Rushmeyer, including her book flight of some of her favorite books from childhood. You can find all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.